welcome to the Columbia Daily Tribune's Behind the Stripes football webcast. This is Tribune sports editor Joe Walljasper, along with Tribune football beat writer David Morrison. David, today we will look ahead to spring football, but first we want to tackle the news of the day, which is Missouri's hiring of Mac Rhodes as its new athletic director. Obviously, Gary Pinkel could not be much more entrenched on the cold seat, so it's not like we're talking about coaching changes, but what sort of impact could you see Mac Rhodes having on the football program?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where you got to start off is I don't think he's going to come in and do an overhaul or anything because, Gary Pinkel, like you said, barring a major scandal or an 0-12 season, I think he's here as long as he wants to be. So I think the place where you could see an impact with a new athletic director is maybe, increased giving, at least at the beginning, with kind of the excitement around a new hire and everything like that. And that could have kind of tangible results in the near future with that South End Zone complex because, they're still in the fundraising portion of it. They haven't really even drawn up plans or anything like that yet for the new weight room and locker room and offices and stuff like that in the South End Zone. So I think, the initial time frame for that was maybe sometime in 2017 if funding went well. Well, if you get a new athletic director in to kind of drum up support and, all indications are Mac Rhodes is a pretty good fundraiser as well. So add that on top of that, it might kind of expedite the process for that South End Zone. But yeah, I don't feel like he's gonna, come in and I guess tear down the structure of the football program or anything like that.
Yeah, I know they obviously have a facilities master plan in place with lots of things related to football, and then Gary Pinkel, after the season, sort of rearranged some of the items on that list and got the green light to do it. So I think when you're winning games like he is, kind of what order he wants it done will probably get done, and I don't foresee that changing too much. The only thing you can say is that he is in his early 60s, so he's not going to coach forever. He said that, so at some point, if Mac Rhodes sticks around, he will make that decision. From what he's done in the past, hiring at Houston, there was a promotion, an internal promotion, and then he hired from Ohio State offensive coordinator Tom Herman. But I don't know how much that really would apply to a not BCS conference, but a Power 5
right?
conference job, but that's his history with football coaches. On to spring football. Thoughts, is there a handful of players that you feel like this could be kind of an important spring for them as far as moving up, moving down?
Well, I feel like the entire wide receiver core it's going to be an important spring for them because
it's really a free-for-all.
I know, exactly. They really have no spots locked down right now. I mean, they've only got 6 scholarship wide receivers in camp right now, and only 3 of them have ever played a collegiate game before. I mean, you've got Wesley Leftwich, who's going to be a senior. It's going to be kind of, his last chance, his last hurrah to make a dent on the depth chart. You've got Jamon Moore, who's, kind of been the next big thing for 2 years now, but has yet to really break out. And then Nate Brown, who, came into last year with some big expectations, played it as a true freshman, but didn't play all that much. And he's actually Missouri's leading career pass catcher returning as a wide receiver with 5. So, I mean, like, he's as far, kind of the best you've got as far as experience goes. And he wasn't even on campus at this point last year. And then besides that, they've got 3 redshirt freshmen who've, never played before: Keon DeLosa, Thomas Richard, and Deshaun Blair. So, I mean, they've got a lot of guys coming to campus over the summer with this signing class, but right now there's only 6 scholarship wide receivers in camp, and they're looking to fill 3, maybe 4 spots. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of movement, I have a feeling, in those spots over camp, and really could be a day-to-day thing. Well, Thomas is playing better than Keon, and let's put him above, and just I think there could be a lot of movement over the scrimmages and over the practices at receiver. So all of them have a lot to gain and possibly lose. And then I think somebody like Malik Cuellar, at tackle, he's the junior college transfer. He's got 3 years to play 2. He was a signee this year, but he's coming for spring practice because he was a mid-year transfer. And, really there is at least 1 tackle spot up for grabs right now. I mean, you've got Taylor Chappell returning on the other side. Unless they want to move him over to left tackle. But, I mean, at one of the ends of the offensive line, there's a spot for the taking. And so, I mean, I feel like Malik Cuellar, if he puts together a good spring and learns the playbook fast enough, maybe he can kind of take back some of the advantage that some of the guys who've been on the team for 2 or 3 years have over him and kind of overtake that spot. So, I mean, I think him and then maybe some of the backup defensive ends can have some mobility as well, just because that's kind of an unsettled position after Shane Ray and Marcus Golden left. But really, it's the receivers are going to have the most, I guess, upward or downward mobility during spring ball.
Would be a little interesting to see Morgan Stewart, whether he is healthy and can contribute. They're going to have a lot of running backs next year on scholarship, but you don't know how high the quality is. And I think if he's the guy that he looked to be last spring, he could certainly get in the mix, but you don't know how he's going to respond to that hip injury, which, throughout the first half of last year, it seemed to be Gary Pinkel kept thinking it was going to be any day now, and then finally they just said it's not happening this year. So that's one thing. Might be a little bit of intrigue as far as the depth behind Matty Mock. Do you think at quarterback, Eddie Prince is been number 2 throughout the year. Corbin Bergsteister is going to be a senior, so I don't know how much. But I wonder a little bit too is if Marvin Zanders, if he's going to get on the field much in spring ball, get reps with the twos or whatever, and if he's not, then does he have to start considering moving to a new position or leaving?
Yeah, I feel like they've got to try your guy Marvin Zanders at some.
Finally, someone's on my side on this.
At some other position, or just see what he can do at places besides quarterback. I realize he wants to play quarterback, and that's one of the reasons he came here. A bunch of other schools were looking at him as a possible wide receiver or a possible even defensive back. Well, he wanted to play quarterback, and that's why he came to Missouri. But I feel like he should realize at this point, and Missouri should realize that the chance to optimize him early on in his career, at least, could be somewhere else. I mean, whether that's slot receiver, whether that's kind of like a Marcus Murphy scat back type who can also throw. I mean, that seems pretty enticing to me. I mean, so I feel like the spring will be the time for experimentation with that, because you can throw him out there at a number of different positions, see how he adjusts to it, and if it's just not working out, you can kind of shelf it before the season starts and start over again. But if it is working out, then hey, you found a solution somewhere. So I mean, I feel like he's going to have the most to gain out of the backup quarterbacks this spring, because really, as long as Matty Mock is healthy, he's going to be the starter, and it's just going to be Prince and Bergstresser and some combination behind him. I feel like Marvin Zanders has, as you've been saying since last April, I think has a different enough skill set from Matty Mock that he could possibly see the field at the same time as him if he's open to that, and if Missouri is as well.
And if he does take quarterback and he does prove to be a worthwhile quarterback, one thing you would say about him is he at least has a skill that's a little different than Matty Mock that could, if you wanted to use him I'm not a big fan of situational quarterback usage, but if you were so inclined to have like a short yardage package where you bring in a different guy, which I would not advocate, but if you wanted to do it, he would have something. He would bring something with his speed that, not that Matty's slow, but this guy is super fast.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe with Prince, you would say, well, he's kind of the same quarterback, but not quite as good as Mock. The other major change, obviously, in the offseason was new defensive coordinator. The reporters finally got a chance to talk to Barry Odom before a basketball game a few weeks ago. Your impressions from him about maybe what we're going to see out of his defense?
Yeah, well, I mean, he basically said Missouri's still going to base out of the 4-3, but he wants to incorporate some kind of 3-4 flourishes as well. I mean, at Memphis, his base was a 3-4, but he played 4-3 20 to 25% of the time. So it wasn't, when he says we're going to be this defense, he doesn't mean they're going to run it every single play. But what I'll be interested to see is, I mean, Missouri's been a base 4-3 for the last 2 years, but for the last 2 years at least, they've run nickel 60 to 65% of the time. So, I mean, I'm wondering if he's going to try to kind of bench the nickel in favor of the 3-4 as, I don't know, kind of his tweak to the 4-3 or something like that, or whether he's really just going to kind of do what Missouri has done these past 2 years, say that they're basing out of a 4-3, but really run nickel majority of the time, and then add in 3-4 and 4-3 looks when needed. I mean, I'll be really interested to see just kind of how he reconfigures the personnel for the 3-4, because I feel like, he can put Josh Augusta in the middle down there and put kind of 2 bigger defensive ends flanking him, like Harold Brantley maybe at one of the ends and like a Marcus Loud on the other, and maybe stand up Charles Harris is kind of his outside linebacker speed end type, or if he wants to go with more of a defensive back heavy look, which actually might behoove them better because they have a little more depth on the backside than they do in the front 7 going into the spring at least, play kind of a star or a ram or a rover type where you've got kind of a linebacker safety hybrid as that fourth linebacker in the 3-4. So I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how he experiments kind of with the personnel he has, and he's only really kind of seen them in mat drills and on film and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be an evolving situation as well once he gets them into pads and sees them in game situations.
Yeah, it's probably a misnomer to call Missouri a 4-3 team. They were a 4-man front team. That I think there's only a couple games really. I know probably the Arkansas and Minnesota games were the most obvious ones where they played a lot of actual 3 linebacker sets. But switching from a 3-man front to a 4-man front, once in a while they'd do that as a change-up. They'd run a 3-man front last year, but it really was, or for the last however long Dave Stuckle was there, it was just a rare change-up. They would use a 3-man front, so I'm anticipating it will be more than just a rare change-up this time around. But most of their personnel was recruited, actually all of it was recruited for a 4-3, so I would assume that's what they would use most of the time. All right, well, join us again before the spring game when we will look back at what has transpired in spring practice and look forward to the black and gold game.